one more panel. It has been one heck of a day today. I can't believe that this is the last panel and my last introduction. Being the host has been incredible. I didn't even think about what it would mean to jump off hosting duty into the hot seat on the stage, but thank you for making it easy for me. But what a way to end with this next panel from the sustainability track. Low impact is a good thing. The latest initiatives in low carbon design sponsored by Moen. So let's watch this great video from them right now.
Water, the element with the power to shape our planet and create so much of its beauty. Moen has grown to become the #1 faucet brand in America, serving more than 1.5 trillion gallons of water per year in the US alone. That's why we don't consider ourselves a faucet company, but a global water experience company. Water designs our life. Who designs for water?
My name is Andrea Marr, and I'm a brand manager at Moen. And the video that you just saw really gives you a little sneak peek at what the Moen brand is all about. And while we're really well known for making plumbing fixtures, and we've been doing that for over 80 years, at the end of the day, Moen's really about water and delivering great experiences with water. So I've been with Moen for over 15 years now. And even back when I was young, we were partners with the EPA. We were working and supporting their WaterSense program, and we were developing eco-friendly products. But we were always making sure that every product that we developed still had a great experience and delivered a great experience with water, especially in the shower. Oh. Got it. Fast forward to 2020. We decided that at this point, we wanted to start to make our efforts public and make a commitment about how much water that we felt that we could help consumers save through our products. With that, we launched Mission Moen, and we pledged to innovate to help save 1 trillion gallons of water by the year 2030. It's a challenging target, but at our last calculation, we've helped save over 232 billion gallons of water. And better yet, we are innovating with new connected products that do even more to help save. In 2021, we made a second Mission Moen commitment around protecting water. We were finding more ways to use ocean plastics in some of our product components and packaging, so we set a goal to use 2,000 tons of ocean plastics by 2030 as well. And right now, our plastic use is at 637 tons, so we're on our way to surpassing that goal by the end of the decade. I might add, too, our first commitment for Mission Moen is to innovate to save 1 trillion gallons of water by 2030. So we are at 232 billion gallons saved by our last calculation. So today, it's 2024. And as we look to the future, Moen has developed the most powerful way for consumers to use our products to easily save water and for us to hit our Mission Moen commitments. Today, we have a whole home water ecosystem called the Smart Water Network. Its primary component is the flow, monitor, and shutoff. This product alone can save up to 90% of the water wasted in homes. And to put that into perspective, the average home can waste up to 10,000 gallons of water per year. And that's just water wasted through a leaking toilet or a running toilet, a micro leak that's going on behind the wall, and things that you don't even know are happening and you can't see. So, additionally, this product is very important to homeowners because it can also provide security in the event of a catastrophic pipe burst. The device will automatically shut off the water to the home, avoiding major damage or loss. So there's a simple installation, and you have a product to protect your home and help you save water along the way. And we're really very excited about the future with it. And we're very happy and proud to be sponsoring this NEXTStage track for sustainability this year, and I'm excited to introduce the first panel here this afternoon. Moderated by the popular editor-in-chief of Metropolis magazine, eco-expert Abby Rajagopal will lead this powerhouse panel as they share unique points of view on responsible design and execution. We all look forward to this great discussion around best practices in low-carbon design. Help me welcome Avi to the stage, along with Amanda Gunawan, who's founding principal of OWIU Design, Lawrence Carr, CEO of Lawrence Carr Incorporated, and Megan Thompson, founder of Greenlist by Spark Interiors.
Your supportive friend.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And thanks everyone for joining us today. It's such a pleasure to have this conversation about sustainability with all of you. We're here at the Kitchen and Bath Industry Show, and I just want to point out something that is pretty obvious, but maybe something that you've not maybe considered in your practice as designers and architects. So when it comes to our homes, kitchens and baths are a great place for us to start to think about sustainability, and sustainability in the way that we think about the term today. You know, if I had a dime for every time somebody said sustainability means different things to different people, I'd be a millionaire by now. You know, because like I hear that so often, but that doesn't mean that it means nothing, right? So we have to understand all of those dimensions, and kitchens and baths are a great place for us to ask some questions, right? If you think about within a home, generally speaking, you know, for a home renovation project or a home interiors project, your kitchen and bath budget is probably going to be the biggest you know, by room on your budget, right? It's where a lot of your money goes. It's also where there's a lot of complex materials and lots of complex assemblies, right? You have to have waterproofing, you have to have heat insulation, you know, you're running plumbing and electrical in ways that you're probably not doing in the living room, for instance, right? And then this third thing is that kitchens and baths are places where many different types of resources meet each other. They're often hotspots for energy use. Certainly, if your house runs on gas, your kitchen is a hotspot for fuel use. They're also hotspots for water use, unless you're taking showers in your living room, which if you are, more power to you. So, you know, they're places where we consume a lot of resources, where we do a lot of complex design. And it's just one of the many different lenses that we can apply to think about sustainability maybe a little bit differently when we're designing the places where we live and work and heal and play and so on. So today on the panel, I'm going to try and tease out with this amazing group of panelists who, you know, one of the things that they have in common is that sustainability is just absolutely integral to their work. That doesn't mean it has to be baseline to your work, but it does mean that there's something to be learned from the work of our amazing panelists today about how one thinks about sustainability while also thinking about all the other things that we consider as architects and designers in our work. So I'm looking forward to diving into some of this detail with our amazing group of panelists. They also are people who have a lot of resources to share. They are ambassadors for sustainable products and sustainable practices. They provide guidance. So if you have a few minutes to stick around after the panel, please feel free to chat with our amazing panelists today. OK, let's dive in. Laurence, we'll start with you. Tell me about how you integrate sustainability into your practice. Why has it become central to your work as an interior designer? And what are some of the initiatives you're involved in today?
Yes. So great to be here. My design firm is Lawrence Carr. It's a multifaceted design firm. And we focus on regenerative interiors and sustainable products. I'm the founder of this firm, but I'm also the founder of Studio Laurence, which is a luxury home goods brand that creates products that are circular, specifically made of circular design. So when I dived into the built environment, which is my second career, I was aware of how important it was to advocating for the circular economy, having lived in 4 continents until moving to New York City and seeing how nature is affected by our economies and people impact. So I really founded my company, a mission-driven company at the intersection of wellness and sustainability. That was the first step. More than that, I joined and educated myself on many different sustainability and circular approaches in order to be very educated and also being able to speak about this in a very fluent and easy way for designers and architects to understand. I'm currently on boards, and one of the boards, I'm on the advisory board of the United Nations Fashion and Lifestyle Network. And I joined that board as we lead the sustainable movement to align more with the global goals and to really raise awareness in our industry and bring more of architect and designer organizations to follow and align these goals. I'm also on a few awards committees and often partners with different trade shows and organizations to contribute as a brand ambassador on sustainability.
That's amazing. Laurence, you mentioned, of course, the UN, and I think one of the interesting things that we notice at Metropolis is that, very often we're talking about, when we talk about sustainable design, I often hear, well, maybe some of our clients are not so interested in that. Well, what about budget and so on? But one of the interesting things that we've noticed is that the policy landscape, right, just building code is changing so rapidly. How many folks here practice in California? Any California folks here? Well, Title 24, right? California building code, energy code is one of the most, sustainably progressive in the country. And that's going to start happening everywhere, right? The way we practice is starting to change. And I think soon, sustainability will have to be integrated into everybody's practice, not because it's a nice thing to do, but just to be compliant with, better ways of building and responsible ways of building for our clients, right? And I think that's another layer there. Megan, you think about that a lot in your work, and alongside your practice, Spark Interiors, you founded Greenlist, which is launching.
It'll be launching fully in July, but the membership site launched 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, soft launch 2 weeks ago. Greenlist, from Spark Interior, if you want to check that out, please check it out. It's an advisory on sustainable materials and products. So, Megan, tell us about Greenlist and why you developed that resource, why you think it's important for us to have a resource like that.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I actually have a degree in interior design with an emphasis in sustainable interior design, and even I found it super frustrating trying to implement sustainability into my work at Spark Interiors. A few years ago, I joined a business coaching, which opened me up to a network of hundreds of amazing designers. And as soon as they found out what my niche was, the floodgates opened and the questions started rolling in. And I realized that they need help. I decided I wanted to figure out where they're coming from. So I surveyed designers for a year, and I learned that 80% of the residential designers I surveyed didn't have any design education, let alone in sustainability. And they felt like this conversation was very intimidating. They were scared, they don't know where to start. And I really just wanted to create a safe place to help teach them, and that will help them do their jobs with more ease. So that's Greenlist.
That's amazing. I think what you're doing is so important because sustainability has to become almost like another practice concern for us. Like, we think about budget, we think about materials, we think about color, we think about experience, we think about construction, we think about all of those things. And sustainability has just become one of those factors, right? And as a factor, it might have different places and different projects, and that's okay. But if we don't learn how to incorporate it into our work as designers, we might get left behind. And so thank you so much for providing that guidance. And it's, there's so many things to be said about, how one starts on that journey with sustainability. So we're going to come back to you on that, Megan, in a minute. But Amanda, I want to bring you in here. At your practice, Only Way is Up, which I love the name, OWIU.
Thank you.
Which is an inherently optimistic kind of statement about design. Sometimes when we hear all these things about climate change and whatever, can be a little bit of a Debbie Downer. how do you make sustainability fundamental to your work? How does it become the place to start, not an additional step?
Right. So I think I would explain it even from our firm's name, Only Ways Up. Like, what does that mean, right? People always think like it's gonna be like this high-tech, advanced, like progressive design in like a very like avant-garde way. But it's more about like building spaces that are built to evolve rather than just last. And what does that mean? That means thinking about the future. So embedded in the name OWIU, Only Ways Up, is already an emphasis on sustainability. And so we emphasize on thoughtful design and careful craftsmanship. And I just believe that, and you mentioned this, and I think that's a very good point, that people throw around the word sustainability a lot, but do we really know what that word means, right? Like, and I think it's important to go down to the root of it to figure out like, what is sustainability? And it actually means to build for the future to make sure that there is ample resources left in the future. And so that kind of starts with thinking, that starts with philosophy. As designers, I think that starts with planting that seed, right? Like how can you build something that's meant to evolve and start with that design principle to guide you? And the moment you start like that, and that is incorporated in thoughtful design, then you kind of like, you don't build something that eventually gets torn down because that is completely unsustainable. So what's the point in having all these materials when you're not starting from the right place? So that's kind of like where we stand with sustainability at its core.
Yeah, I think I take that point really well. It's about, you have to figure out what you want to do before you figure out how you do it, right? Exactly. And so if we don't have if we haven't set our goals, right, how do we know how to proceed, right? To Megan's point here, how do you educate yourself, or how do you become more involved with initiatives? So I think that's a really key point, is you have to know what you want to do. And I think one more thing I want to say here is that whatever definition of framework of sustainability resonates with you is valid, right? I mean, so yes, the world is on fire, we got it, right? But like, not every one of us is going to solve every problem in the planet. And so just having your own point of view, that's going to give your practice that differentiating factor in the marketplace when it comes to sustainability. And I think, so embrace your own perspective on sustainability rather than trying to get to a universal perspective on sustainability. And I think that point also I take really, really keenly, Amanda. Before we proceed, I just want to say we're going to open up for questions from all of you as well. Hopefully we can have a little bit of dialogue with our panelists. They're all great folks, and they all have integrated sustainability into already running, thriving design businesses. So if you run a small firm or studio or run your own practice, they're great people for you to talk to figure out. So if you have any questions, please hold them ready for our panelists. I'd love to understand from you, Megan, and from you, Laurence, your understanding of what does low impact design mean? What does sustainability mean to you? Amanda gave us her definition, so why don't you both go next?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, well for me, low impact means considering every stage of a product's life cycle. That could start at sharing the shape and end at what our client does with that rug when they are done loving it. Is it gonna end up in a landfill? There are 100 steps in between. So I'm looking at what manufacturers are doing, and I'm looking for products that are coming from companies who have low impact practices baked into their process so that I can prioritize sourcing from them first. That's what I'm focusing on most right now, at least.
For me, low impact encompasses minimizing our environmental footprint while maximizing the outcome, the environmental outcome. As Megan mentioned, it's really understanding the entire life cycle of a product or a material. The more we dive into it as designers and architects, the more we educate ourselves to understand what happens from the product or material sourced to the end-of-life products or material and how it can be renewed, the more we can make our selections and decisions that will be impactful.
Right, absolutely. I'm not an impulse commenter on social media. Like, I try and not give in to the urge, but once in a while I see something on social media that makes me so mad. And I saw recently this social media account that was an interiors account say, oh, a hack. If you can't afford fluted glass or frosted glass, you can apply this vinyl sticker on your glass and make it look like, and I was like, wait, are you serious? Like, that's not a hack, that's a crime, right? You take a material that's like inherently sustainable and you put a toxic plastic on it. Now that glass can't be recycled. You lost the opportunity to pay, to provide some livelihood to an artisan who could have done that sandblasting or done that frosting for you. Or you avoided a creative opportunity where you can ask yourself what other materials can go into this space. So, that attitude of questioning, I think that you both talked about, which is, the life cycle of the material is really important. I'll quickly recap for anybody who's not aware. The construction and demolition accounts for 30% of all municipal solid waste around the world. So 1/3 of all waste in the world comes from our industry, right? And it comes from the thing that makes us money, which is construction and renovation, right? And the second thing is that, of course, I don't know if all of you are familiar with this number. Metropolis was the first to publish this number in 2003, which is the building industry is responsible for 40% of the world's carbon emissions, right? Yes. So what we do has a very big impact in the world. And so thinking through small decisions while keeping the big picture in mind, I think is really important. And again, everybody can have their own definition of sustainability, but that's important. You mentioned materials and products. What are some of the questions you ask of a product or a material when you're thinking about considering it for your project? Do you have like a go-to checklist? Do you work with some kind of, framework or guideline?
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
Well, I feel like it's different for each material, right? Like you have to look at them with a different lens. But at the same time, I think it's a lot of research. I think it's a lot of understanding the source, like they were mentioning, understanding the source and then figuring out the life cycle of it. Like, where is it going to end up, right? And so with materials, it's a lot of research. Like, you talk to the collaborators, and it's very, very useful when you have representatives that are very helpful and willing to give this information to you. Because at the end of the day, you're kind of like what you said, like every small decision matters. So you're kind of like responsible for putting this into the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I boil it down to the first three things that if I'm engaging with a new line or a rep, I'm looking to see how it's made. Are the people that are making it being negatively impacted? Where is it made? That indicates how far it could be coming, which contributes to the carbon part of things. And then what is happening on install and in the use? Is it harmful to my clients? And if those three criteria are met pretty well, then I'll dive further down with that line.
That's a good first set. That's amazing. Laurence?
I will add that I look for healthy materials, non-toxic material, low carbon. I really familiarize myself, and I think it's super important that everybody knows about third-party certification because they have a standard. We need to know them. You make the same choices when you go to a supermarket and choose your food. The same when you go, hopefully, and buy some clothes. You want to know where it was made, how it was made, who made it. You want to make sure that you have awareness of the social impact it had on some communities. So as designers and architects, it's very important to be aware and know what the third-party certifications are, such as Forest Stewardship Council or Oecotex, or there's numerous. So these are very important. In addition, I definitely select materials and products when I think about recyclability, the end of use of a product, and definitely, no waste. If possible, it closes the loop, and we can contribute to the circular economy.
It's incredible how many. I've been at the show the whole day today, and every time I've been at a booth, I've asked them about their sustainability credentials or their developments or stories, and everybody's working really hard. there's a lot of good news at the show this year, including some lines that are fully recyclable, some lines that have recycled content in places I didn't know they had recycled content. Lots of great work on water saving and water management. We heard from Andrea from Moen. There's a lot of good going on. And I think our responsibility is then to apply that responsible materials in a positive way in our projects. You mentioned certifications. You mentioned asking questions from a new line. You talked about where materials come from. That information can change year to year, month to month, right? There's always new information on sustainability. How do you stay up to date? How do you keep track?
I constantly strive to learn new and updated information. So I get certifications and really follow what is the newest. You have a LFE Material Lab. I'm going to mention that because that's one of the more forward-thinking that in the country. By Parsons, the new school, directed by John Sarah Ruth and it's going to come back to me. We also have the International Living Future Institute, which is phenomenal, a really forward-thinking organization that can get you certifications. I'm LFA, which means Living Future accredited, which means you really learn biophilia, sustainable buildings, healthy materials, the red list. It's incredible to become aware of a number of red lists. The red list refers to all the chemicals and more than that we can find in any product and in any materials, whether it's for actually a building, as well as clothing and food and so on. I'm part also of different, as I mentioned, awards, association and organization for being a judge, so I'm become aware of products. I'm Maison Objet ambassador and part of a panel of a judge awards there, so I become aware of all products in Europe and some international. Here I've been brand ambassador for Sustainable Furnishing Council. So anyway, being really part of these, and as I mentioned, I'm at the UN leading the sustainable movement, these really help my thinking to constantly evolve. I never take for granted anything that I know. I will keep learning, and as Avi just mentioned, it keeps changing all the time. Regulation, policies, social governance, and sustainability. So I think it's really important to keep educated and to keep having, this thirst for learning in order to just then share.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just taking a note from that, there are so many organizations out there. I try to look at what's local to me. I look at those professional organizations in my area. There's a new organization that just started up a couple years ago called the Good Futures Design Alliance. They're great. U.S. Green Building Council has chapters all over, right? I mean, even just starting there. And then I always bring it right back to my reps because they are your straight line to the answers that you need. Mm-hmm. And they're already telling you, which trims go with which valves. So, they can answer those questions. They can also answer the questions about which companies have these initiatives that you might not know about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there was a lot that was already covered there. But yeah, it could also just be as simple as word of mouth, right? It could be talking and just, if you're interested in sustainability, putting it out there. I don't think we're at a time where there is a lack of resources. So it's putting it out there and then just having discussions with other people like us. We're having a discussion right now. There's so much to learn. There is a lot of exchange that can happen over here. And and all the other resources that were mentioned, of course.
Yeah. Alison Mears is the co-founder of the Healthy Materials Lab.
Thank you.
So the Healthy Materials Lab from the Parsons School of Design offers a certificate course. I strongly recommend it. It's amazing, especially for if you're a residential designer, you design homes. It's absolutely amazing. It's a great course to take, and it opens your eyes to how to think about materials. So I highly recommended that one as well. There's lots of other great resources out there, as we've mentioned. Your reps absolutely are important. Your peers, talking to others in the industry is really important. I will say, if you don't follow Metropolis, please follow Metropolis. We provide a lot of information on sustainability. If you want more details on any of that, I'm happy to share that with you as well. And then, we're at the Kitchen and Bath Show, and I must say NKBA has some great sustainability resources for you as well. Literally every organization seems to have a core group of people that care about sustainability a lot, and they're great to tap into. So if you are part of NEWH, IIDA, ASID, whatever organization, whatever association, anything that you rely on for your networking probably has a sustainability counterpart to it. So I would say, look into that as well. That's great. Speaking of kitchens and baths, let's talk about kitchens and baths. What are some of the practices or materials that you've been drawn to or that you've been thinking about in terms of having more sustainable kitchens and bath design?
I think there's like an endless array of choices these days, like you mentioned. It's like breaking it down into what makes up a kitchen and what makes up a bath, right? And in every element, there's actually things in which you can go down a sustainable route and a not so sustainable route. And so, for example, with a kitchen, like there are things that you can utilize, like lighting, for example, and then there's countertops. Like what makes up a kitchen? Like it's appliances, it's lighting, it's basically all these elements, and then looking into the sustainable option. Like for example, with countertops, like considering reclaimed stones instead of quartz, or even like looking into other sources. Like I know these days there are a lot of like more innovative, sustainable materials available. Like I know, like I've seen one that's like upcoming, like plant-based stuff like mycelium. That's super interesting, and I think you can get like a very interesting look. Obviously not for like the entire countertop, but like in some like design elements to it. Same with the bathroom, putting in more like natural ventilation, natural light. Installing like water faucets that have like spouts that are more efficient in terms of water. With toilet, it's the same with like toilets. We like toilets with flushing systems that are more efficient. It's all these like little changes. Like you don't think it makes a big difference, and sometimes it is hard to justify this to your clients, but in the long run, like it's making them aware, like educating them of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Since we're talking certifications, the certification you want to keep an eye out for on water is WaterSense on most fixtures and appliances for bathrooms. But thank you for that, Amanda. Go ahead, Megan.
I think, as you mentioned, there's so many things that you can be focusing on. And for some of us out in the audience, we might have not done any of these things, and it might feel intimidating to be like, whoa, I didn't think there were 100 things I could do. So if I were going to suggest just starting with one thing, setting a boundary in your practice. Maybe that boundary looks like, I will refuse to sell my clients anything that's harmful to them. Because if it's harmful to them, it will be harmful to the planet, And then from there, if we're doing kitchens and baths, I imagine a lot of our work might be remodel work. So working with your contractors. When you get back from the show, chat with your favorite contractor and say, hey, can we try something new on our next remodel? Can I have a separate dumpster? The dumpster is just going to be for cardboard. You're going to be pulling trash out of it for the next 6 months, but just start with one little thing and get really good at it, and then add as you improve upon your own skill set.
Absolutely. And dumpsters are a really good place to start.
Yeah, just cardboard. Just separate the cardboard.
Yeah, the impact you can have just by separating waste is incredible.
Incredible.
Lawrence, go ahead.
Now, I just wanted to add, in kitchen and bath, so obviously you want to really reduce negative impact, by opting for energy efficient appliances, water saving fixtures, and emission materials. But what I wanted to read, because I was really encouraged by this, the energy department is increasing regulation for gas and electric stoves and ovens. So by 2028, the electric stoves will be required to use 30% less energy than the current, lowest performing models. So I thought that was wonderful. And then gas stove and electric ovens will need to use 7% less energy, and gas ovens 4% less energy. So talking about, we're really striving to do more and more of this evolution and increasing of having less environmental footprint is very, very encouraging.
Yeah, and of course, where Laurence and I live in New York, they're considering legislation basically banning gas stoves in all new construction.
Right.
That might be coming soon. So New York might make everyone go all electric in their cooking, which is,
Induction.
it's going to be a culture change for
Yes.
us. But, at some point we got used to, we didn't cook with gas throughout the history of human civilization either.
Right.
So
Right.
we're ready for our next step of evolution, I guess.
Absolutely.
I think that's the redesign of it too. Where I live, we're at high elevations and BTUs are measured at sea level. So gas is so inefficient in the mountains. But it's really hard to talk to the clients and tell them, let's go with this induction because they love the look of that griddle under that hood. But we really do need to think about maybe gas just isn't the answer.
Yeah, and I think like we see, when you go to a Monogram or you go to the, West Hall, I think it's the West Hall, you see all of these now, they're all induction cooked up, and they're as beautiful as, if not more beautiful. I think more beautiful than all these gas stoves. And I think the aesthetic element within the sustainability will really take over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I also wanted to add that it also, again, the first point that I brought up, right? It starts from the design. I think it it needs to have a level of thoughtfulness from the very beginning so that you don't end up redesigning because that's obviously extremely unsustainable. But another part of it is also looking at what's existing and when you're doing your remodels and seeing if you're able to reuse some things. I think that also helps. Also the point that you guys brought up, right? It doesn't mean that you have to throw out aesthetics. There is a way to do this right.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions or comments from the audience? Start getting those ready. I have one last question for our panelists, but I'd love to take a couple of comments from all of you as well. So anything that you want to throw our panelists' way, and challenge them, please. Let's be provocative here. So tough questions. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for a great panel. Is there any kind of information that you find really hard to get when you're doing vetting of different kinds of materials and products?
Yes. So one is furniture and materials, actually more furniture. Where do you find secondhand furniture that is really viable, and that you can trust? So there's a rising and increasing number of company organizations. They just sell more and more secondhand furniture because, of course, we want to avoid all this furniture and products in the landfill. But how do you trust them and how do you find them? I found this hard. But I think by talking to your city, looking into your city organizations that takes care of waste and landfill and recycling, then you find different links and different resources. I found that very hard to find. That's one example that comes to my mind.
Yeah. I feel like these days marketing is really good. So there's a lot of things that they show what they want you to see, right? And so you kind of have to dig a little deeper and ask all these questions, where is it sourced from, and who is making these? And it's a little harder when it comes to, I feel like, developing countries, because you kind of want to see beyond that and where the sources really are. I feel like it's a lot of interrogation and not trusting what you just see on the internet.
Yeah.
I would add to that and say that it's not so much, once you get in touch with the right person and you're asking the questions, I find that most companies are very open with their information, but the trade secrets are protected. So the walls I run into are, send me your sales license, what is your website? It's legitimizing that I'm a designer practicing and I have a right to ask these questions. I very much appreciate the companies who are willing to just share this information because they're so proud of what they're doing.
I want to add something. Sorry. I feel that it's always a great testament of a company when you see that they have put the effort, made the effort to really do some research and put on their website a sustainability report. Once you have that with metrics, you need reliable metrics, then you can start to trust a little bit more and make sure you convince more. I think that's a good way to start. And they often have references with third-party certification or some of the organization we mentioned and more.
Yeah, I was just going to add on that. A good benchmark for me is usually if they're a B Corp. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody familiar with B Corp certification? So B Corp certification is a certification that companies can have. It's basically says that let me restart that response. B Corps redefine who a corporation benefits, okay? So usually in the old model, a corporation's primary financial responsibility is to its investors and shareholders, right? So as long as they make money, the company thinks the idea is that the company has fulfilled its purpose. But what B Corp is trying to tell people is that there are other stakeholders for a company, including your employees, all the vendors and contractors and people that you interact with, your customers, their families, their communities. All of those things should matter to you as a company, because that's what ultimately determines the success of your company. So it's not just if you're paying a good dividend to your shareholders, then you're successful as a company. And so they're redefining what a corporation means. And so there are a handful of organizations in our industry that have B Corp certification, many materials manufacturers, lots of great companies who deserve your support because they go through a very rigorous process of continuous vetting of how they're making an impact in the world. So thank you, Amanda, for bringing up B Corp. We had another question there.
Hi. I find, for me, the biggest challenge I've had with sustainability is cabinetry. I can do some research, but have you guys had that incident as well?
Yeah. I would say yes. Oh, do you want to go?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
The cabinetry is a tough one. I try to, number one, just make sure it's being made stateside, if not in my own region. There's the two categories of cabinets. There's we're doing custom built-in cabinetry, and there's the box. So I'm going to assume you're asking about the box cabinets by the 3 inches, right? There are some companies that you can find that are using no formaldehyde in their adhesives. They're made stateside. They are doing I'm going to forget it. It's not FSC, but it's very similar to the responsible harvesting of the wood. Just making sure that they're meeting those guidelines, and then that the finishes and the paints, if you're going to do a painted cabinet, there are no VOC and those kinds of things. But I would probably steer more towards the custom, because if you can design by the board foot, how long is a board foot? Let's design the wall so long that there's no waste cut. That kind of thing could be a good strategy too.
I will add to what Megan said. Looking locally for some carpenters, craftsmanship is key in design. And so some actually are very sustainable. They use local wood. They're very careful about how they were going to proceed in their designs. And often I find success in really looking upstate New York, in the tri-state, Connecticut, New Jersey. I really look for local experience, contractors, carpenters who have been working for years and how they source their wood. And that's great success. Now I'm going to go the opposite end, and IKEA, which has some questionable, sustainable practice, but at the same time is one of the four thinking about circular economy, provides also some great cabinets, kitchen cabinets at very low price, and it's a very reliable brand. So
I would say also with IKEA, it's modular. So if something gets damaged, you can replace just that part.
Yeah.
That is pretty sustainable.
Yeah, and you can dismantle, reorganize. That's part of a circular economy. You want to make sure you use products that can be that way.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of great points have been brought up there. But at OWIU, one of the things that we have done is also to basically reuse cabinetries from old projects. So I feel and one of the materials that is the hardiest, that the ones that gets reused the most, that we take from old projects, put it into a new project is stainless steel. And so, so I think it's also exploring different materials, but it's not just like thinking linearly where it's my only option is wood. There are many ways, like you can go lateral and like explore the different types of wood, but you can also go vertical and try to explore different materials or see if there is a way in which you could like reuse from old projects and like retrofit.
Company.
There's a startup called Renovation Angel that we featured in Metropolis. They may not operate in your area, but what they do is basically rescue cabinets from kitchens and then provide them to be reused in new projects. They do fantastic work. There's an organization called All for Reuse. If you Google All for Reuse ecosystem map, they've basically mapped a lot of salvage yards, secondhand furniture providers. You'll likely find someone in your area. It's a fantastic resource, so that would be great. I think cabinetry is one of those product areas that's so problematic, like furniture, because it has multiple components. And it's not very easily reusable. And also, it's the thing that it's easier to pull out and throw in the dumpster than to put in storage and use on another project. Plus, there's not a lot of transparency when it comes to those products in the first place. And I think the instinct of going to a local fabricator, carpenter, and relying on somebody who feels like they have responsible practices is a great way to go. It's the one exception to the third-party certification rule is, go with common sense rather than certification, because certification is not great in the product category.
Right.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, we have a question back here.
Hi, I'm just curious, also in the same vein of materials, in this, the selection of appliances, what are some of the key criteria that you look for? And then sort of a secondary question would be, what are the things you're looking forward to see in the next 5 to 10 years from these appliance manufacturers to meet these sustainable requirements?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of biofabrication and biomaterials. I think there's an incredible intersection of science and sustainability and creativity innovation in that field. So I'm really excited about this. I think, really designing products and materials from these resources with different techniques. We finally talk about 3D printing a lot, but there's biomaterials and all these science approaches. So I think I'm really excited about that for the kitchen and bath, but as well as any other interior designs, products and materials. I forgot your first question.
Appliances.
Appliances, which we are excited about, or?
What do you look for when you're?
Yeah, smart we didn't talk about smart technology, one of Avi's favorite topics. Yes, really that, making sure that the oven and all of the cooking appliances, or even actually there's this real trend of wellness that is not about to decrease. It's like, we're in a trillion economy of wellness economy. So the spa, how do we create a spa at home, steaming, and how can we remotely control it and prepare it in advance, so for shower and faucets and all of that. So all this smart tech, I'm really looking forward for that, and I guess AI is there as well, and definitely more water conservation is key, is the new gold. What are we doing on this planet to actually really contribute to that? So every brand really reusing a maximum, as Moen mentioned it, and the goal is fantastic. I'm looking forward to this, to really, that resource is key, it's really the new gold, among other things.
Yeah.
I would say that's a lot, it's very good, all this information. I would also add on that in the appliance category, the higher end brands are built for repair rather than replacement. So if you are able to get into that price point in your jobs, that's going to help If you're not able to, there are some lower price point brands that have made some climate neutral pledges. I don't know if I should name drop them. I think their targets could be not 2050, maybe 2030, but I do see brands saying, you know, we're pledging to be climate neutral by 2050, and if I have to go and I have a low budget client, I'm gonna buy from that company because my dollar helps them achieve that goal.
Very good point.
Yeah. So a lot, again, has been said. I totally agree. I'm very, very excited about the intersection between AI and appliances. Like, I can't believe some of the things that I'm seeing these days with appliances. It's pretty crazy. I can't wait to see more and have it become more advanced. But at the same time, like having the intersection between AI, design, and sustainability, right? And it's all starting. It's little things like, for example, like a flushing system or like an automatic hand washing system where it limits the amount of water that you use. Yeah, so I hope to see more of that.
Yeah, in general, you know, appliances that help us move towards better habits.
Totally.
You know, on the corporate level, absolutely, you want to look for companies that have commitments, but also appliances that give us better habits, right? And that's where technology, and we just saw Moen's, I took a picture of that slide because I hadn't heard of it before. The water flow cutoff system. That's a great use of technology, right? Smart technology. And I think we have to think about our homes, our appliances as part of a larger system. I just want to say one thing about the water comment that Laurence made. You know, there's a reason why we've been harping a little bit on water, even though the title of the panel actually said low carbon. So there's a reason for that. The reason is that, you know, we are in the midst of an energy revolution in the United States, right? Right now, about 20% of all energy use in the US actually comes from renewable resources. And, you know, thanks to some policy changes we've made, but also thanks to market forces, it looks like that trend is going to continue upward. So which means that electricity, hopefully, is going to get greener and greener. And comes from renewable sources. Unfortunately, we don't have a renewable source for water. Like water is water.
Yeah.
We don't do a great job of capturing water. We don't do a great job of recycling water. We don't do a great job of conserving water. And water is not a universally and uniformly distributed resource, right? So, you know, we can have a giant solar farm somewhere outside the city, and with very little effort, that electricity can come to a neighborhood that maybe doesn't receive as much sunlight. Think about that, right? Or you can have a wind farm in a windy place and do that electricity. It's hard to bring water in that way to places with depleted water tables, right? And the New York Times did this article that said that we're in crisis mode with water in the United States at the moment. We do not have enough water and enough water in our water table left for our current rate of consumption. So that's why you're hearing a lot of water talk on today's panel, but it is a very, very important topic, as Andrea pointed out to us right at the start. Okay, I think we have time for one last comment or question here. Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you all very much for helping us with this. One of the things I say to my students is, it's confusing because it's confusing. This is very difficult to navigate, and I want to actually probably cap off with carbon footprint and calculating, because when we can give those metrics, like you're referring to our clients, those are tangibles that we can understand and measure, and I think we can help make better decisions. Is there a resource or a method or an association that's not necessarily looking at revenue, but looking at measuring those types of metrics that you can point us to?
There is. Am I allowed to say names?
Yes.
Yeah, so I came across a company called Green Feet, I want to say, and they are consulting. There are other companies, please compare, find one that works for you. There are a lot of companies you can work with that are consultants, and they will help you to evaluate the carbon that's going on in your business. What's so hard about our business is that we don't do the same thing for every client we have, right? So part of what I'm trying to build for myself, and probably will roll into Green List, is, you know, if I get a sink from this company, and I get it to Denver, how far does that travel? So there are consulting agencies you can work with to kind of build some of those standards. And then my eventual goal with that is to say, okay, well, we used this many CO2 and emissions, and I'm going to plant this many trees. I don't know, I haven't kind of figured it out yet. Right now, what we do at Spark Interiors is for every invoice that's paid, I just go on to ecology and I plant 10 mangroves. It's honestly so inexpensive to plant trees. So, yeah.
I will add that there are an increasing number of material libraries online, and they are so, everywhere. So there's a few in the US, but you have some in Europe, and one of them is Asia, Australasia. One is Materium, and I believe it's based in the UK. They've been identified, and they really help to give a real description of the carbon footprint, and it's a carbon calculator, but they also tell you exactly what material is made of what and where and sourced. It's an excellent resource as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I usually just go online, and to be honest, I'm like learning about all these things for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, really, if you were to try to, calculate the carbon footprint just of materials on a project, ideally every material or every product would have an environmental product declaration. You'd be able to go to that, get a number that's called global warming potential, GWP number, and you know the mass or volume or number of units of the product that you're using in the product. You multiply and you get a carbon footprint number, right? It's not hard math. The math is not the hard part. The hard part is getting that foundational information of what is the carbon footprint of this material or this product, right? You can get carbon footprint information on your electricity use pretty easily. The EPA has a calculator on their site. So you kind of have to piece it together from a lot of different sources. Carbon is a good metric in general, for large-scale practices and large-scale projects. On smaller projects, sometimes it can be a very, very difficult calculation to make. So you kind of have to find your own way. I will say one thing about finding your own way when it comes to sustainability, and I like pointing this out. It might be something obvious, so don't hate me. If it was easy to do, it wouldn't be valuable to do, okay? Nothing that's valuable is easy. You know this from your work. If your work day-to-day was easy, why would your clients pay you for your work? So if it were not challenging, it's not worth doing, right? And this is challenging. It's challenging because not just because the information is not available or the industry needs transformation. Sometimes we think those are the challenges. The real challenge is if every product published an EPD tomorrow morning, would you know what to do with it? Would you have the judgment to be able to take those numbers and make that decision? How are you going to prepare for the world where every product has the information available? So you don't have any more excuses. What are you going to do then, right? So it's about also honing our skills as designers, right? We honed our skill, it's like how we learn to work with new materials, or how we learn to work with new code, or how we learn to work with clients who have a completely different taste in color than we do, right? We learn. And it's very much that kind of learning about attitudes that's more important, I would say, than learning about an individual certification or an individual carbon calculator. Because ultimately, I want everybody in this room to have their families and their lives thrive and prosper. We're not greedy, but we certainly want a good quality of life for ourselves. And so we have to ask what differentiates us. How do we grow as professionals? And sustainability is a great place to grow because it is still so much of it is uncharted territory, which means you might stumble upon something that only you can do at this point and nobody else can. And it's worth trying to find that out. And I think if by doing that, you can hopefully get more clients and charge a better fee to your clients, but also do good with every project that you work on. And that's my ideal. Right?
Yes.
And so please do the hard thing. I know all of you are committed. Just by the questions we got, by the way, we can tell. You're already doing the hard thing. Please keep going. Stay at it. You're doing it for the sake of all of us, right? So thank you. Thank you so much to our panelists. It's been absolutely wonderful talking to you all. Thank you all so much for joining us today as well. If you're staying at the show tomorrow, Start asking some questions at your booth visits. Start to gather that information. That's where it all starts. Your reps and your vendors are your biggest resource. So let's get going. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.